Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at Rurik, Dawn of Kiev by Stanislav Kordonsky. It is a game for 1 to 4 players. In this game, you are challenged with expanding and spreading out your influence through army units and your own hero across the land of Kiev. Now, it plays 1 to 4 players, so you have a 1-player system with a smaller section of the map, and then 2 and 3 players play with more, and then 4 players plays with the full map. You have resources that you're going to gather. You have deeds and motivations that you're going to try to complete to get more points, and it has an interesting auction programming system, I believe they call it, that may be of interest to some people who want to try it. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what's in the box.
Let's take a look at Rurik and what components come in the box. I've set up the starter of a 2-player game, and here you will find within yourself the resolve to see the pieces. First off, you have this board, which is sort of the tracking board of all of the things you can possibly do and earn points with. You'll notice that as the game goes on, you will be tested for how many regions you rule, how many buildings you built that are adjacent, how much trading you do, and of course the warfare track. The victory point conditions get higher and higher, or the victory points you earn get higher and higher as you raise yourself up in prestige. Each player will get one of these boat mats with 2 resource conversions, 3 coins, etc. You will be putting goods that you get from the map onto these boards, and as you fill out columns, you will get coins at the end of each round for how many you've got completely filled out. So obviously, the poor lad there, only getting 1 of him is enough to give you a coin, whereas some of these you need 3 fish, etc. Every player starts with a leader, and this is my leader. Her name is Maria. What do you do with a problem like Maria? Well, you put her out there, and you know that whenever you muster troops, she can actually muster troops in an adjacent region next to her that's empty of any of her troops. Also, you get deeds at the start of your game, or so that this is unique to you. So at the end of the game, if you, the player, finish this or meet this condition, you're going to get these victory points. And you have your peeps. These are your advisors. These are going to be they're going to be what you put on the, I believe they call it auction programming map, which we will see shortly. Because we're going to go over here. Now on the board, you'll see a beautiful board, just beautiful artwork. And the green areas for 2 players, the yellow areas for 3 players, and the whole map is for 4 players. Then you have your set of resources, very nice components. You have the buildings that you'll build. There's 3 different kinds of buildings. You've got your fortress, you've got your castle, and you have sort of your market tent. And you'll use those when they do different things when you place them. And finally, you have the action board. This is the meat of the experience right before you deploy. This is actually sort of the brain programming that you're going to do to pre-program what you would like to accomplish that turn or that round on the map. And so your advisor units are going to be placed on this board as you go back and forth, and you're going to jockey for position to be able to get the highest ones. The higher you can keep your meeple, your advisor meeple, the more powerful the action is going to be. However, there are numbers on this, and that means that this is a low-powered one. There's a good chance if you put this at the top, say have muster, that someone's going to come along and take a meeple that's 3, 4, or 5 power and bump you down. But it also goes in reverse order when it's time to execute. So you might be bumped down to the bottom, but you're going to get the first chance to muster, and that might change the game a little bit as it goes on. And finally, we have the very thin but meaty manual of what the game is about, and lots of full color illustrations and such, including a pretty good robust section on the solo play. So with that, let's get into a round of play. Alright, so first player is the guy that has the bear, who has more knowledge of Eastern Europe than anybody else, I guess, or however they do it. It's pretty clever, but this is Bear. You can barely see him, but I can. So, on your turn, you have an option to play on here what you want to do. There's muster, basically adding your units. There's move, basically moving units. There's attack, And guess what? That lets you attack. Tax is where you actually pull goods off of regions you control or occupy. Build is where you build buildings. And scheme are these special cards that if you take, you can choose. And you can use those anytime during your turns to get bonuses. Like this one's, you can pay a coin at any time during the turn that you're taking. And it will give you an extra muster point. So these come in as far as pivotal moments. Now the first thing we have to do is we actually put some people on the board. Like at the start of the game, each player takes turns putting 3 units out. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go here. Yellow's going to go like, yeah, was that fool? And then I'm going to go ahead and put one here for adjacency. And he's going to stretch out that way. And then I'll do here. And he's going to stay here. Why are there 2 of these? There should only be 1 of these. Sorry. Only 1 per customer. Okay, and then you put out your unit. I'm gonna put mine here. We'll start here. And this one, we're gonna go here. Look at that. How does that go? All right, now we're ready to roll. So the first thing you do, the first player does, is take one of his meeples and places it somewhere. So I'm gonna take a risk and darn it. I need a muster, so I'm gonna put the 4 in muster, okay? Now, you have to exceed that if you're going to muster. So you can't just you can put the 4 underneath, but if you wanted to trump the muster power, you have to use a 5, or you can put coins to bribe. So this is now worth 5. Bumps down. Wahaha. Take that, blue man. And now he's in charge, so you don't want to run out of coins, but you want to have a few there so you can bribe your life away. I think scheme, I'm just going to go here and say, hey, maybe he won't bother scheming. And then the yellow player will say, hey, I'm going to try to tax here and see if I can pull away with it. Then, we want to attack. Let's do this. Let's attack with 5. Well, that's a little rich for yellow to do, but could he take another coin? If he took another coin, he could bump him down again. He's not. He's gonna build. He's gonna build. And then finally, move is, now you can't reuse a column unless you've got 3 of them out there. So now that I have 3 out there in different columns, I can now use this to put it anywhere and do some more damage. So I'm going to do this and pay a coin and bump him out. Bye-bye. See you later. Of course, now you could go here and move, which might be advantageous, but then again, so we're going to go ahead and do it there. Okay, now we're done. That is the end of the strategy phase. This is the point when now everything, and we can take these off now because we've used them, we throw them away. Now we can take this opportunity to begin executing those actions in numerical order from 1 to 5. So 1, scheme. What do? Draw 3 cards and keep 1. So I'm going to, coins. I can do an extra move whenever I want. And, 1 combat and a coin. I like that. I'm going to keep the combat and the coin. And, I grabbed 4 on accident. Let's pretend I didn't cheat. Alright. And that's it. And then that goes off the board, and we're done. Now, we have attack. And attack is interesting because when you do the attack sequence, you have an opportunity to remove anywhere. So remove 1 opposing troop from a region you occupy. So if it's a rebel, you gain a reward. If it's an opponent, then you advance on the warfare track and check for casualty. In this case, I think we're going to go ahead and remove. We're going to do this. We're going to remove here. We're going to take one of these. I get that resource, and I get to put it over here. That resource is a rock. That rocks. So now we have a rock. Look at that. And since it was a rebel and not an enemy player, we don't have to worry about casualties. We would if we were attacking some other opponent. So then 2. Now we go to 2, and 2 is tax. Tax works like this. You have goods. So you have two wheelbarrow points. If you're taxing somewhere you don't rule, and rule means you have more of your units on that parcel of land than anybody else, then it only costs one of your wheelbarrows to do one resource grab. Otherwise, it requires both. In this case, I would like to grab, but I can't grab. So I'm going to go ahead and take this as well. I rule there. I rule. So I can take that. Anywhere else I rule, I can also do that, but I don't have a chance to rule. So that was probably a bad move on my part. But hey, what the heck. If I had anywhere else I ruled, I could grab the resource from it and place it on my ship. Or I could place it on my dock if I didn't want to. But right now, placing it on the ship makes more sense. And that's the end of the second meeple. Now we have taxing. Guess what? Yellow wants to tax again. Attacks. And so, because there's only one point, it has to be a place that yellow rules in order to be able to grab a resource. So let's grab a fish and put it there. All right. And then we have no threes yet. You'll notice that on rounds 3 and 4, you get more meeples to work with, so it expands out the game a bit. But for now, you have 4. 4 means muster 2 units. Now, you can muster units anywhere you already have a unit, except I have a special ability because of Maria. And that lets me put units anywhere where I can muster units in a single region adjacent to Maria's region that I don't occupy, since occupying is basically just having anything in there at all. I didn't, and so there I go. Look at that. That's happiness. Happiness and merriment afoot. All right, muster. Now yellow wants to muster, and so there's yellow muster. All right, so now we have 3 units to take, and we need to decide where we're going to put these suckers. Anywhere we already have a unit, we can go. So we'll put one there, and we'll put another one there, and we'll put one more there. So we've sort of concentrated the area of our units, which is not entirely optimal, but hey, it's a sample game. And finally, we attack. We get to attack 2 units. So anywhere that I have an opportunity, so I can remove 1 opposing unit from a region. So this, why the heck not? So I'm going to remove this unit. Because this is an enemy unit, I get to go up 1 on the track. I am the more warlike. And if I'm in front of everybody, I'm going to get 3 points at the end of the game for my military pensions. And then, once I do that, because I'm attacking someone else, I do have to check for a casualty. So I need to roll. If there is a casualty on the bottom, and there's not, then I would take a casualty. But there isn't, so I'm safe. And the second is, I'm going to attack again. Yes, you can do it in the same region. All right, so I attack, bumped it up, and then, did I take a casualty? I do not. See, so that was pretty optimal. That's a nice day at the park. And finally, build. Now, build, I have 2 build points. Once again, if I rule an area, I can build using 1 build point. If I don't, then it takes 2 build points to build in an area that I occupy. I always have to be somewhere I at least have a unit there, but if I have more units than anyone else, that gives me an efficiency advantage. So we're going to put, since I rule here, we're going to put this. Now you can only have 1 building type in a region, no matter what. So no one else is going to be able to put one of the tents there, the market tents there. Now I mean, yellow could build whatever it wants, whenever it wants, but as far as adding the other 2 types of buildings here, but there can only be 1 market in any given region, no matter what color it is. So with that, when I place that does nothing, but when I'm taxing this region with this marker, I get an extra good whenever I collect, or a coin. So that's 1 build point. Now I don't have rule anymore. So the only place I could build now, because I only have 1 build point left, is here again. And I like these. This is the fortress. This counts as a troop for rule of the region. It doesn't attack or anything else. It's just if you're counting whether you rule or not, this counts it. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 power for ruling. So pretty much I'm guaranteed to rule this region for quite some time. Also, when someone attacks me in this region, they have to draw an extra scheme card for a casualty. So there's a greater risk of being a casualty. And that's it. That's actually the end of phase 2. And then finally, we go through the claim phase. This is sort of the wrap-up at the end of the round phase. In that regard, you advance markers up the claim tracks. So, for example, do I rule 2 regions? Well, let's check blue. Blue rules this region, blue rules that region. So 2 regions it is, so up they go. Yellow only rules 1 region, so they're not ready to go up there yet. Now, building adjacency, I've only got 1 building adjacent. I didn't do well with that. So both of these stay down where they are because I didn't build. And finally, goods on the boat. I have 1 good on this boat and 2 on that boat. So that doesn't go up either. So not a great advancement. Then you gain a coin for each marker not placed on your claim board. So 3 coins, 4 coins for yellow. And then we have 1, 2, 3 coins for, yay, for blue. All right. And then you choose deed cards. This is where it gets interesting. Every player can choose a deed card. So this is, for example, market day. If you have 3 markets in regions with different goods, then you're going to get this bonus. You get an extra deed card, plus it's worth victory points at the end of the game. So these will stay with you until, and at each turn, whenever you use an advisor, you can complete one of these, get the benefit, and then place it in here, so that at the end of the game you're going to get extra victory points. And so players go around and they grab these deeds and collect them up. So you get up to 3, yeah. And then you refresh the tokens, you fill those out again, you replenish the goods, conversion tokens, sorry, yeah. These are things, during your turn, if you needed to use, say, a honeycomb and a fish, and then any other good, then that would kind of beef you up and give you an extra muster point. You can flip these over, and once you use them, you flip them over. Once a round, you could use them. So you could use up to 8 times. Generally speaking, I haven't found that I've wanted too much. I'd like to keep my goods, but if there is that one thing where, man, if I just had 1 more muster point, I could rule this kingdom. That's where that comes in handy. And finally, you advance the marker round to the next, and you play 2, 3, 4 rounds, and then you do the scoring round. And once again, you consider all these scoring, then you consider your deed cards, then you count some of the goods and cash you have left, and that's basically Rurik in a nutshell. So let's get into my final thoughts on what I think of Rurik, Dawn of Kiev.
Okay, let's take a look at our final thoughts on Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. Now, as always, we go over the cons first. And the first points are probably more expectation setting. This is not a dudes on a map the way you would expect dudes on a map, despite the appearance of dudes on a map. So this is a different sort of challenge. It's an intermixing of sort of a mashup of very different techniques and gameplay mechanics and styles, and the dudes on the map are just one element of that. But I wouldn't downplay it either. You do have area control does matter, as clearly indicated by the victory conditions you're trying to achieve. Combat is not subtle. It's as straightforward as a straw. It's I will kill you, maybe I survive, maybe I don't. How's that for 3 different dialects? There's no, there's not a dice roll of expectation. There's no hidden ambushes or anything. There's nothing in that vein, because that's not the type of game it is. It is I am removing one of your units when I attack you. The question is, do I also take a damage? That's the only unknown in combat. So combat is pretty deterministic to a degree of the only X factor in that is, will I also feel the pain? And those who crave end-to-end strategy confidence, this may also thwart that motivation, because you will be jockeying for position on action selections. But if you're overbid, then you're going to have to improvise. You're going to have to adapt. It's easier at the start of the phase, to kind of go, okay, I really want that action. How much is is there any possible, if I don't unravel this set of actions in the right way, I'm going to be off the mark a little bit, and that could affect me. Your options do get limited more if you aren't the top dog. That's something to keep in mind. It's there are games, set yourself in that mindset that you're going to have to adapt, and you're going to have to try and steer around to the different actions you're going to take and all the different ways of actions you can take on the auction programming board. Now let's get into the pros. The components are stylish, and they're all situationally delicious. I mean, the map looks great. The miniatures are top-notch. The thing reeks of care and attention to that kind of detail. Now, the use of auction programming is meaty but very approachable. It's got a tension all its own. Some people have called it sort of a prequel prize fight of combatants before the real action begins. And to you know, this is an adaptation of a gameplay mechanic that is not unique to this game. There have been variations of this style of thing in a lot of games. Forbidden Stars, where you're stacking up your actions and then you unravel them. Colt Express, stacking up your actions and then being forced where your actions sort of go out of sync. Victorian Masterminds, this is a rarely and does the same thing. It's just that Rurik takes this to a polished level, incorporates it as a more essential, less vestigial way than other games have, where it is its own sort of mini game. There's also the power versus speed element. Like, I want that action, but I'm also going to be delayed in executing that action versus someone who didn't get that action, got a lesser version of the action, but gets to first act upon the board. The solo experience, which I don't think I touched on quite enough in the video part, is perfect for me because, like Nations and Scythe and some of the other automata style of approaches, it avoids all of that grunt work of simulating an opponent's every synapse, and instead it just gives you the calculated end results of a predisposed emphasis. It simplifies, but it still challenges. I still enjoy it, particularly with the different variations of difficulty that they provide in the set of cards that basically goes flip this, it programs its own actions the same way the auction programming does. So that's a big plus. The other thing is interlacing of actions in priority order makes the map tactical, and you have to be reactionary rather than high-level strategic. To me, it acts as the perfect spatial funnel for the auction programming portion of the game because you're setting yourself up for these big, this unleashing. There's this capacitor of a board that says, okay, whoosh, in turn order, everybody, head out, queue out, and then boom, 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 boom. You sort of see like the like stuff changing all over, like this pachinko thing of just changes going on as you're taking the actions you have in the order that you have them and doing hopefully something near what you plan to do. The common ways of scoring victory points are sensible and balanced. They're not too focused on one or two tracks. Well, they are sort of focused on, there are three primary ways to score points, but it's also not so diffused and obfuscated that you lose your mental offspring in the middle of this ball pit of options of like, oh, I score points this way, but that way, this way, that. Some people really like having everything kind of narrowed down to at least a number of freeway lanes level of decision making. Some people like point salad. I like point salad sometimes, and sometimes my mind's like, no, let's just keep it simple. So in summary, like a new kind of autumn soup with lots of familiar tasty elements, Rurik hits all the right chords, both as a multiplayer and as a solo experience. It doesn't outlast its welcome. It's 4 rounds and 4 rounds only, but it does provide enough time and opportunity to map out and execute the bulk of your best laid plans, no matter how often they might go awry in micro steps. It strikes me a little bit like Coimbra, which was also a game that did nothing out of the ordinary, nothing new, but did everything so well and so pleasantly that it ended up being just this exquisite experience every time it hit the table. So, I recommend you, my friend. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.